About 3 years ago, we got a tease for a title called The Avengers Project, which sounded great. I mean, finally, the biggest IP in the world was gonna have a serious, big-budget AAA game based around it. It seems crazy to me, with the amount of box office the Marvel Cinematic Universe has done, that we never got a big-time Avengers game until now. And it was a while before we'd hear anything else about this game. Actually, we finally saw it in action at E3 last year, and the interest, the hype around it, has just been straight downhill ever since. That original reveal did not go over well. The more we heard about the online RPG mechanics, the microtransactions, the less people seemed to care about this game. But now that the game's out, is it really as bad as it seemed? No. It's way, way, way worse. I honestly cannot believe these people were given, entrusted with this franchise that basically has the license to print money. I mean, it shouldn't be hard when you're handed characters like Captain America, Thor, Iron Man, Black Widow to produce something that's going to garner success. You'd have to screw this up extremely badly, and oh boy, did they. To start, the visuals. I think the quality of the visuals are fine. This is a multiplayer game where a lot of stuff is happening on screen at once, so I understand why it's not like stunning graphically. I mean, the frame rate already takes a huge hit in big chaotic moments, but the actual design, I think, is the issue. That's where I think the visuals are quite poor. Things overall just look so generic. The characters. A lot of defenders I know will say like, oh, you're just a casual MCU fan. It's not supposed to look like the movie versions. Okay, but are they supposed to just look like cheap cosplay versions of the characters? Because that's what they look like to me. You know when your parents throw you like a superhero-themed birthday party, and they go, guess what, little Timmy? Captain America himself is gonna be at your birthday party. Well, this is the guy that actually shows up. And aspects like the environments, you have the entire history of Marvel to draw from. You could take us to Asgard, to the Savage Land. And where do you take us to, like, the desert? Default snow level 22? So uninteresting. And the enemy design, I think, is the worst of it all, but I'll get more into that with the gameplay. The main gist of the story is there's this A-Day event that happens involving the Avengers, where things go wrong, an explosion happens, kills a lot of people, ends up giving powers to a bunch of people, and the Avengers are blamed for the whole ordeal, which leads to them disbanding, and we have to reunite them. Despite what you may think, the story does have a main character. This isn't just some ensemble deal, and that character is Kamala Khan, the modern Miss Marvel. You do get to take control of other Avengers characters during the campaign, but there are many instances where you have to play as Miss Marvel. Let's talk about this character for a second. Khan is a character that comic readers are constantly told is very popular. Whether it be by Marvel or various paid influencers, she's everyone's favorite. Despite the fact that a lot of you have probably never even heard of this character before today. Now, she doesn't move merch. Her comics sure as hell don't sell. They barely even do indie numbers. That's why they constantly reboot her with a fresh #1. In terms of her powers, she's basically a less cool Mr. Fantastic, if you can believe that's even possible. She can lengthen her limbs, her arms and legs, and also make her fists and feet like really big and stupid looking. She gets invited to this big Avengers Day celebration and is able to meet the Avengers themselves for being a finalist in a fan fiction competition. I wish I was joking. And of course, as she meets the Avengers, not only did they all read her story, but they absolutely loved it.
Your story had the evil sewer...
The sewer lizards, yeah.
Yeah. Thor really got a kick out of that one.
Oh, all right. Hey, that thing you had me do with the storm drain cover? Pretty badass.
I mean, that was Captain America. And Black Widow. I'm dying. No!
And it's actually very fitting because this whole story does feel like bad fan fiction. Khan is totally your typical self-insert character. I actually don't think a single one of the Avengers ever says an even slightly negative word towards this character, even the ones that are more assholes like your Thor and Iron Man. Nope, everyone, as soon as they meet her, just love her like a sister, unconditionally. It's seriously like something a 12-year-old would write. And I'm not just trying to hate on the modern Miss Marvel here. All the characters are done terribly. Again, like I stated at the beginning, whether it be their design, The voice acting, they actually got some pretty high-tier voice actors in here, like your Nolan North, your Troy Baker, but I don't know if it's just they weren't a right fit for the characters, or again, it's the awful writing, but everything just comes off so cheap and half-assed. Now let's talk a bit about the gameplay here. You start off during the A-Day event, and it's actually pretty cool. It makes you feel like this could be something solid as you just get a bit of a taste for each character. You play each of them for like a couple minutes, then transition over to the next one. There's some cool set-piece moments, albeit some pretty laughable QuickTime events where you could just not press the button and things just sit there waiting for you to do it. It's like, jeez. There's this pretty cool fight actually with Black Widow against Taskmaster, but yeah, the game peaks immediately and it just spirals down from there as you quickly discover how shallow this game really is. Which gameplay-wise, this is an action RPG, a looter. You play as these heroes in a third-person perspective. For combat, you have, light attacks, heavy attacks, dodges, counters, your typical action fare, as well as more powerful skills with cooldowns. As you play through the game, you level the characters up, unlock skills, as well as find and equip gear, all to make them more powerful. I actually like these type of games, your Diablo, Warframe type deals, but I am aware that the big thing that people always complain about with these types of titles, without fail, is that they are tedious, grindy, repetitive. And that is kind of the point. Like with all these games, you're doing the same things over and over to level up your characters and get better loot. So the key to making a good game like this is to make things feel less repetitive by adding a lot of variety in all aspects of the gameplay. Allow for multiple fun builds for each character or class so players can switch things up regularly. Level designs, you should have a wide array of environments, as well as have an abundance of cool, different enemies that are fun to fight against. Like I already mentioned, the environments are boring as hell. The combat, I will say, a lot of the moves feel pretty good. Like, I did enjoy just wrecking shit as the Hulk, grabbing enemies and using them as a weapon to beat up other guys. But again, you need that variety in the moves and the build options, and it's just not here. I mean, you look at these skill trees, and a lot of the stuff you get, it'll be like adding one hit to a combo, a different animation more so for an attack that gives it like a different effect or something. But there's nothing you can really do in terms of different build options that makes the way you play the character feel unique. And that's such a key factor to games like this. The characters feel fairly unique from each other, but when the point is to build up the same character, get them better gear in that, you need to give people enough options to make it feel like they can play the character in different ways. And a big problem with the abilities, they all have really long cooldowns, so even when you're doing different things, putting attributes and different moves, kind of changing them a bit, you can only hit an ability once and you gotta sit on a minute plus long cooldown. So for the vast majority of your gameplay, you're just doing the character's basic combos and waiting for your abilities to finish their cooldown so you can hit them once again and then wait for them to recharge once more. It's not a fun gameplay loop, and that is devastating to these types of games. And coupled on top of that, the enemies you fight. Could they have picked more boring ones if they tried? 95% of what you fought here were robots and SWAT army type guys, which I get that AIM are the main bad guys, but that's a decision the developers decided to make. So fighting these same enemies not only gets old fast, but it just looks so out of place for characters like Hulk and Thor to be hammering on some random soldier with a gun, and the guy just takes it. Oh yeah, these SWAT guys have riot shields. That's why they can block Thor's hammer. What a joke. And in terms of the post-game grinding for gear, because the campaign is only 10 hours long, it's really quick. The main focus is to go out and grind to make your characters stronger. And having a friend, maybe multiple friends to do this with in multiplayer, may make things a bit more fun, but nevertheless, I think even if you do have a bunch of friends to play with, after you do the same tedious missions 10, 15 times each, fighting the same, 7 or 8 different versions of enemies, with objectives like smash 10 of these things or hold the line in this highlighted area for a certain time limit, I think most people are still going to get sick of this really fast, and like I said, when you add more people, more chaos into the mix, that frame rate does struggle. I think that's another thing you're going to get sick of. And another thing in terms of the grinding, I almost forgot. With games like this where the big focus is acquiring gear, one of the things that makes the hunt so fulfilling is seeing that like epic piece of armor get equipped to your guy, and when you play with other people, they see your guy and they're like, oh, you got the flaming phoenix pauldrons? That's so sick. When you finally do grind for dozens, who knows, maybe hundreds of hours to get some really cool piece of gear, it does not change your character cosmetically at all. Again, for most genres, this probably wouldn't be a big deal, but in looters, people usually want to see their progress reflected in the look of their character. And that doesn't happen here. The only way to change your character's appearance is, of course, by getting new costumes, which is where the microtransactions come into play. Now, I will say, this game does microtransactions right, in my opinion. It's all cosmetic, nameplates, emotes, and of course costumes. I think the price of things is pretty standard for these types of games, but when you don't have the gear making any changes to your character's appearance, it almost feels like you're really trying to push people to get the costumes because they're going to want to look at something different. However, each character has a battle pass, like in Fortnite or something like that, where as you accomplish different things, you level up the pass and unlock different items, many of which are cosmetic. And there's a lot of solid costumes for each character in their battle pass, so you can get a fair amount of cosmetics by playing the game. You can also pay to unlock things quicker if you'd rather not play the game, which I'd totally understand. And the battle pass is going to be one of the key aspects where they make money off this game in the long term, because I believe while the battle passes for the launch characters are free, any characters they add down the line, you'll have to pay for their pass. However, they've said you're not going to have to pay for any actual future characters or content added to the game, which kind of leads me into my final point. The big defense for this game, the only defense it's really going to have, is the same we see for all of these games as a service titles. Just you wait, they're going to make this game so much better. Totally possible, but it is the thing we always hear with these games, and seldomly does that end up actually being the case. And this game would need a lot of work. Like I've mentioned, pretty much every aspect I feel is severely lacking, especially for the type of game it's trying to be, an online action RPG. But of course, this is the Marvel Universe, tons of stuff they could add. I know Spider-Man is coming to the PS4 version of the game. That's a real FU to the other versions, but even so, I think a character like that, if done well, could be a big draw to a game like this. Even with him being exclusive to the PS4, if I was running this show, I would have had Spider-Man in this game on day one. He would have been like the first character I made. He would be front and center on that PS4 box art. Maybe we could trick some people into thinking they're actually buying the Spider-Man game. They could add more build variety, more environments, more enemies, and if they're smart, they'd add more characters like Spider-Man that I think would be a big draw. Even though this isn't tied to the MCU, they have gone with the movie Avengers, but in the history of comics, almost everybody has been an Avenger at some point. Lots of big names. Deadpool's been an Avenger. Wolverine's been an Avenger. Are these characters on the table? Because I think that'd be big. Still, though, with the state this game launched in, I personally don't see them turning this thing around. I think this is going to be headed straight for the bargain bin. Honestly, with the way it's designed, I wouldn't be surprised if it goes free to play in the first year. Once more, the Avengers license could have been used to produce a title that just explodes in popularity and becomes as big as a Fortnite or something. Instead, Fortnite is a better Avengers game than this. Hell, if you have a Switch, Ultimate Alliance 3 is 10 times the Marvel game that this is. Way better options to get your superhero fix. And that's why I think Marvel's Avengers is going to go down as one of the biggest missed opportunities in video game history. Anyway, with that, this video's a wrap. Let me know your thoughts on Marvel's Avengers in the comments. Have you been playing the game? And do you think they'll actually turn this thing around and make it into a game that's deserving of the Avengers IP? Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed this discussion of Marvel's Avengers. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing. And if you want to keep the conversation going, hit me up on Twitter at Johnny Zakari. And join my Discord, ChiGuy and Friends. Link to both in the description below. And as always, thanks for watching.